should be going. So good evening. Let me share the screen. Let's go to the slideshow. So today I'm introducing major project again. Essentially, I'm going to go really quick. So we're going to talk about the application, the deadlines, the supervisory process, why you need to be focused on the not just the research process, but also the academic writing and some resources. So the idea is the first thing you're going to do is you're going to find a topic or a supervisor. And there is an application form, which I can show you at the end of this presentation. And there's already a link. And the idea is that the applications are between October to November. So when somebody said the deadline is passed, no, it's all of November. So preferably the earlier, the better. So this is the link to the ethics application. As you know, earlier today, there was a presentation on ethics, and that's already on my YouTube channel. You're not permitted to collect data until you receive the approval from the Research Ethics Committee. So a review of the deadline. As I said earlier in our presentation, these deadlines are some that are fixed. So maybe I should have to change them right now. It changes in the thing. So the ones that are hard and fast. So the hard and fast ones are, the thing about it, you see this? This is the part. So people were asking me, oh, that's not where we'll do it. Let's do it here now. So somewhere in here, is this the right one? No, this might be it. Yeah, well, that doesn't stand out. So I'm going to make this be. So the point is, I'm going to say that if you don't apply by February to the ethics committee, even though you could apply later than that, you're at risk of failing the project. So again, we could allow you to submit the major project application after November, and probably we will allow people to do it after this. But if you do it after that, there are going to be problems. Mr. White, who is actually here, and I were talking about that later. So all of these other dates are all best case scenario. So in best case scenario, you would have a draft literature review already. In a best case scenario, it would be chapters 1 to 3. But the whole point is, this is what the goal is for this semester. So if you go to the next thing, I'm going to say the ones that are not going to change. So this is not going to change. And this is not going to change, right? And this is not. So all of these not going to change. Is there anything else? I soon come back and talk about the dates. So these don't even change. All right, so I'm going to go back in the slideshow view since people were asking about the dates before. Right, so if you go back, there's some dates, but we want people to apply by the end of November, because if it's not good, we're going to say apply again. So the application don't mean you're necessarily perfect. And we want everybody to apply for ethics as soon as possible, but certainly by the end of February. Preferably before the mini viva, but that's not going to happen for all students. And we want you to do all of chapter 1 to 3 and practice, preferably in semester 1, but certainly you're going to get ready by January 20, because that's the day you're going to do the mini viva, which will be graded. For those who don't know, a mini viva is a 15-minute presentation of chapters 1 to 3 to a panelist. And then after the 15-minute presentation, there is a question and answer period. Then as part of what you're doing, you'll be writing up a chapter 4 and a chapter 5. You may be fixing up a prototype. Chapter 5 will be done after that. I actually have no date for that, but there's a date set already. You'll be doing the final viva, which is a 30-minute presentation on May 17th, right? And then you'll be submitting the final project 2 weeks later on May 31st. And then for the supervisors, they will be grading you within 2 weeks of that date as per the UTech guideline. And then as such, there will be also a competition. Those dates are to be set for the paper and the poster. And there will be a date in July for resit and project supervision for those who resit, right? So the major project meetings, actually pushed back one of them. This was pushed back to number 4. So I told you I'm only required to do 2 per year, and I have decided to do more. And maybe if you don't need this much, I might miss out some of them. So these are the tentative major project meetings dates between the coordinator and students. So in terms of the supervisory process, what does that really involve? You need to have a supervisor with a group of 3 to 5 people. Basically, all the students need to write contributing to each of the chapters. So you're going to document, not only going to write part of chapter 1 and part of chapter 2 and part of chapter 3 and part of chapter 4 and part of chapter 5. Sorry to be so like particular. You're going to document each person's contribution. You're going to interact with other people in the group. It's not a one-way show. It's not a my way or the highway. And you want to make sure that there's no plagiarism. And you're responsible to make sure that in your entire major project that there's no plagiarism. By the way, there are tools like Turnitin, which is a software program that can help for you to check. But there's other tools, things like Google, and other things that you can use to check. And if you're actually really smart, there's actually way just to read, and there's ways to just read and know that this thing is most likely plagiarized. But the point is, this is all your individual responsibility. Each student must all present. If you miss the oral presentation, you're going to need to do it some other way. It's a requirement. So you are required to meet with your supervisor. If you miss the meeting, you need to be advising the supervisor like any other class. In fact, not even like other classes, it's worse. You don't meet with the supervisor too often. Based on the UTech guideline, the supervisor is only required to meet with you twice for each semester. In other words, 5 times for the whole year. So when an excellent supervisor meets with you many more times than that, he or she is just being a really great person. But so at those few meetings, so whether they're 5 or whether they're 20, at those few meetings, what you want to do is to be there every time or apologize in advance. And you come ready for advice and feedback. You send email in advance, you communicate properly, you create meetings, notes that is going to be sent to the supervisor. And when you meet with other students, it's also good to actually take meeting notes as well. And what is the use of meeting notes? I've keep seeing situations where meetings happen and I give feedback and the students come back the next time and those things are not changed. Mr. White is still here? Have you ever found that happen to you, Mr. White? Your mic is not open. I can hear you down the hall, but not in the mic. Are you talking? What you did? I can't hear you. Students, can you hear Mr. White?
No, miss.
Right, I hear him. Sorry, he's in the same office as me. Sorry, I heard Mr. White saying yes, but I'm not hearing him on the mic. Anyway, he agreed with me.
His mic is on, but it seems like it's not working.
Mr. Mike, your mic needs to sort out. Anyway, I'm going to go on because we're not making a big point. I was just saying that we all as supervisors. There we go. We're hearing you now. So what you're saying now?
Yes, I was agreeing with you. I was also telling you that the skit rep is here.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for the notification. So maybe I can meet. Is her right? Who knows? I'll meet her later. So,
yes.
All right. So the requirements of a supervisor, guys, that the supervisor should meet at least twice per semester with the group. The supervisor obviously can choose to meet more. that the supervisor should actually read the ethics application and then sign it, and give feedback. Give feedback about each chapter in a timely fashion to assist with, students are going to actually present the oral presentations. Those are called mini and final viva. And so they should give feedback to the students. And then they're required to grade. So there are 3 different assessments. They are called the proposal, which is the first, that's the concept paper, which is done in the first semester. And these other 2 are, well, the continuous assessment is throughout the entire year. And by year, we mean academic year, which runs at UTech from August to May. We're not talking about a calendar year here. So that is what your individual contribution to the project. However, so even though there's an individual assessment called continuous assessment, if for the final project, which is chapters 1 to 5, you do almost nothing. And let's say you're part of a fantastic group that gets 95%. It could be that you as an individual for this might get 65 or 55 because you are a weak link. So it's not necessarily the case that even if your continuous assessment is okay, like I say back to your continuous assessment, because you're a weak link, your continuous assessment might be 50, and chapters 1 to 5 are generally good. So maybe you're actually a little bit higher in the chapter 1 to 5, but basically if your contribution to the entire project is not good, you're not only going to be penalized only by this, it's going to affect your grades in the other elements, because it's not everybody gets a group grade automatically. So moving on to the next topic, remember it's going to be a very short presentation. Academic writing for major project, a quick review. So you already remember, I hope, that chapters 1 to 3 is introduction, chapter 1, literature review, chapter 2, methods and procedure, chapter 3. So this is what we wanted to do in semester 1. And since all of you who are in PRJ 4020, major project, would have did CRM, you should have a fairly good understanding of this already. So introduction is the background, the problem statement, the purpose, the research questions, the significance, the delimitations, definition of terms, and the references. And in the background and the problem statement, you should have citations. I'm not going to be talking about this right now. The research questions are probably the hardest of all of this to be done. And I would suggest that your supervisor and other people, all the people who are good at research, can give you feedback on research questions, not just your supervisor. You should definitely work on avoiding all manners of plagiarism. So you cite all the authors that you use, all the citations that you should be in the reference list at the back. And the reference list means that everything you have referenced should be actually cited. So if you have 10 things in the reference list, then all those 10 sources should be cited somewhere in the document. And if you're either going to put things in quotes, which you're going to limit. So the amount of things in quotes in academic writing is very limited. And only you quote things that are brilliantly said. Typically, you're expected to paraphrase, and there are different ways to paraphrase. And you can essentially give your perspective on ideas. But in general, what is good to do, as I mentioned earlier, is you can use plagiarism software like Turnitin to see if your work has plagiarism, and then clearly make adjustments so that you're not accused of it. Because for those who don't know, if you're accused of plagiarism, that is literally grounds for eviction. What do they call it really? Like eviction from UTech. So everybody here should know what an abstract is. The problem with the abstract is it's a summary. Writing it really well is super hard. You're not going to write the abstract until the very end, so you don't need to worry about the abstract. But this is a presentation as an overview. So you're not going to do the abstract for this. Sorry, there is an abstract. There are 2 times you're going to do abstract in this project. Maybe 3. You do an abstract for the major project application. You shouldn't write the abstract for the application until after you write the concept note, not at the beginning. So that summary is written at the end. Similarly, you can use that, you can modify that abstract and use it for the mini Viva. By the time you're ready to do the mini Viva, some things about the project may have changed a little bit, so you might want to modify it. So the abstract for the application and the abstract for the mini Viva should be very similar. And then when you finish a project, the abstract for the whole project is going to be different because you also now have results and or findings. So to be really technical, results are for quantitative and findings are for qualitative, but you should have some results and a conclusion. So the abstract at the end of the project also includes that. Generally speaking, it depends on the context, but abstracts are anywhere between 100 to 500 words, and what we're going to ask you from something specifics in our context. So whether it's a journal or a conference, there are always specifics, and for our assignment, there are specifics. So I had some example here. I'm not going to go through this now because I presented before. This particular presentation is actually on the major project application. So there is, I found some nice YouTube videos on writing an abstract, which you can look at. You can look at the scholarly papers that have abstracts. And so I'm going to move to the lit review. In the lit review, you're going to have the introduction, the body, the summary, and the references. And that's what you're going to do. You need to figure out how to organize it. And the best way usually is with themes. Yes, Matthew. Go ahead,
All right,
Matthew.
Could you break down the concept note again, Miss? I don't know if you said it earlier. How is it different from the abstract that we're writing for the major project application?
Well, okay, the major project, I was going to show it later, but the major project application is essential. Let me see where I have it. I have it here somewhere. It's not on the screen. I'm just looking at this. Okay, so let's look at this. You see this introduction chapter? If you remember from CRM, in the CRM assignment, we had somewhere here, there was supposed to be a methods description. So in a concept note, you typically also say propose methods to answer the resource question, right? And depending on the context that you do in introductory chapter, sometimes it has methods and sometimes it doesn't. So I gave you one here that didn't have any methods. So in the major project application, what is asked for is a concept note with methods. It also asks for a description of a prototype if you're going to do a prototype. And it asks for a whole lot of demographics like who are all the students in the project, who is the supervisor, I don't know, things like that, you know, some basic stuff. And it also asks for a summary of what the project is about. So a summary of the project is about is called the abstract. So when I said, so in fact, let me just, since you asked that, I actually have one here. So 2 years ago, me and these students, I presented at the Ministry of Health conference, and this is actually an abstract. So this was a major project that was presented at the Ministry of Health. And this, because I was showing this, I actually did not show the entire abstract that I presented at the Ministry of Health. So the abstract continues with the conclusions. I didn't show the conclusion and results in this abstract. I only showed the objective and method. There also was a results and conclusion, which I deleted. So this would be an example. I could just have the study has 2 aims, and here are the 2 aims to identify the features that physicians and patients want in a mobile app for diabetes patients. And it says that it's going to look at physicians who treat type 2 diabetes patients, as well as patients age 18 to 80. They're going to be recruited in these parishes using convenient sampling, or they actually were. But in this, your sample, in your thing, it would be in the future. And the app is going to be developed using the Android platform, which tracks 4 things: blood sugar, blood pressure, weight, and diet. And then they interview physicians and ask patients to do surveys and observation. No, they survey patients and they also observe them using the app. That's sorry, I didn't want to read it. So that's an abstract. Yes, Matthew.
All right. So would a format like this suffice for the abstract for the application? Because I see where we have a word limit of 100 to 150 words, I believe.
Yeah, so I don't remember now, but I actually think that this was a 250 word limit, and I actually had the whole thing be 250 words, and I remember I didn't show you my entire abstract. Sorry, this part is not part of the abstract, you know. It's just here, the abstract right here. Sorry,
Okay.
I can't. You get me? The abstract is just objective method. This is not even 150 words. What I could read it. I didn't read it word for word because I'm not in the mood to read word for word. This section here is maybe 150 words. So yes, this would be fine. Okay? That answers your question?
Yes, miss.
Yeah,
Perfect.
man, great. Right. So, and you can go and read and watch videos about writing an abstract if you're curious. Because I actually have, this is actually on the major project website. So I was here and we said that you already did CRM, so you should know this already. Organize your literature review in a way that makes sense using something called themes, which are the topics and subtopics you're going to write about. And you need to have an introduction section, a summary, and references, and rah, rah. And you need to justify why it is that your project is worth doing. And you can use one of these types of research gaps. And this is a description of them. And I talked about this in research methods. Hopefully you know something about it. And then what are the methods and procedures? They are, what are your research design? What is the sampling techniques? What are the data collection instruments? What are the procedures, the specific things you're going to do? What are the ethics considerations, the methodological limitations, the timeline and budget? If you don't know what this means, this is not the meeting for you. So hopefully you have some idea what chapters 1 to 3 is. In another meeting, not today, we could talk about chapters 4 and 5 when I'm doing a review. Because I actually did this already in another meeting now. But next semester, when we get closer to the time, we can actually do detailed reviews even of these things if that's really needed, but not right now today. So resources. So I have that there are a whole lot of research. There's papers and videos about writing research papers, and some of them are really good. Look at this. Can you believe that there's a 1.2 million views of how to write a paper in a weekend and how to write a review in 30 minutes or 11? And in my opinion, these are actually really good. and the common errors. The point is there are some really excellent videos and even nice basic papers about writing academic stuff. So you can go and look at those things. And oh, and then if you want to think about looking at, the reason I included this here is that if you wanted to look at using open data for your research project, you could look at these sources, and you need to make sure that you're thinking about doing the research in an ethical way. And many of us are going to be doing it online. So you could look at this particular source. And you want to think about having good oral presentations, which is coming up in January 20th or 22nd. And when you get to the methods chapter, you need to think about presenting the study limitations, which is one of the biggest weaknesses of students. And then I had a whole long list of other useful resources and some things about systematic reviews. And that's the end of my presentation. Any questions? Mr. White, any comment?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. And thank you, Miss Muir, for your very good presentation, and Miss Roberts, student rep, for joining. All right, we had a lot more students in the earlier section. About
Yeah,
60.
Yes,
60,
I
60
realized.
minutes.
Good
We had
evening.
60 person.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
All right, good
evening.
evening, Miss Roberts. So, Miss Roberts, what you could do is post the link, post the link that was given out in the earlier section for the ethics in your WhatsApp group, and just ensure that